The sale in 6 Hours of the Glen marks the halfway mark of the Imsa season, and as the series heads back to Watkins Glen, the championship picture is starting to take shape in a big way. Some drivers are coming off the biggest sports car race in the world. Could we see a Mans Hangover for some of Imsa's biggest names? The number 31 Whelen Cadillac has been virtually unstoppable this season. But could the unpredictability of Watkins Glen finally be their downfall? And then there's the weather, because at Watkins Glen in June, you never quite know what you're gonna get. This and more as I take you through 7 storylines to follow in this year's Sailin' 6 Hours of the Glen. Now, before we even talk about what's going to happen at Watkins Glen this weekend, we need to talk about what just happened a little over a week ago now in France. The 24 Hours of Le Mans, of course, recently took place, and the Imsa paddock was very well represented in it. In fact, the results were pretty darn impressive across the board. Inter-Europol competition took the LMP2 class win with Jakub Śmiechowski, Tom Dillman, and Nick Yaloli, with Yaloli set to be right back in it in the 93 Acura this weekend, with Dillman running in Inter-Europol's LMP2 entry. CrowdStrike Racing by APR, another entry in the LMP2 class, took home the Pro-Am win. Driving for them, George Kurtz, Lauren Heinrich, and Alex Quinn, who are all going to be back on the Imsa grid this weekend. And in LMGT3, Imsa had very strong representation there. At least one Imsa driver represented each of the podium finishing cars there. Now, it wasn't just all success. There were some teams that had a tougher time of it as well. One of the most notable ones was Jack Aiken and Earl Bamber, who normally compete in the number 31 in Imsa, competing with Team Joda. They had they're having a very strong start to the season here stateside, but they also had a very strong start to the race at Le Mans before they ultimately retired with a power steering issue. Wayne Taylor Racing, a fixture here on the GTP grid, finished in 9th in Hypercar. Not a terrible result, especially considering the number of cars that were in the Hypercar class, but Jordan Taylor acknowledged that they were a bit on the back foot for much of the race after an early mistake. And the winner of the Bob Aiken Award for the past 2 years, 13 Autosport, they had their race. Didn't end early, but I guess they didn't make it the full 24 hours, so by definition, it did end early after they sustained some accident damage. Now, I'm just scratching the surface here with all of the Imsa representation. There's been plenty more, but I think you get the point that I'm making here. There was a ton of Imsa representation at Le Mans just a couple of short weekends ago. Now, all of these drivers and teams are professionals, and they've dealt with quick turnarounds before, but as time zone changes, those long travel days, and of course the emotional weight of Le Mans, whether you win or lost there, all of this absolutely takes its toll. All of these drivers, teams, they have a job to do, and they're all going to be gunning for their respective class championships. Any sort of an off weekend or a hangover, so to speak, at Watkins Glen isn't really what any of them can afford if they want to try and set themselves up for a strong championship run. Now, in addition to these storylines, I also send out a bonus storyline to all of the S's newsletter subscribers before every race weekend, along with everything you need to know heading into that weekend's race. You can subscribe for free, yes, for free, at offinthes.com or by clicking the first link in the description. Alright, now let's talk about the big red elephant in the room in GTP. Or maybe I should turn this into a Clifford reference and call them the big red dog. Anyways, that's the number 31 Cadillac Whelen entry, and they've scored a class record 7 straight podiums dating back to Indianapolis last season. Jack Aiken and Earl Bamber picked up their first win of 2026 last time out at Detroit, and they head into Watkins Glen with a 144-point lead in the GTP Championship. Meanwhile, Aitken has been one of the stories of the year this year in Imsa. He's emerged as a genuine star for Whelen in much the same way that Pipo Derani did when he was back at the wheel of that same Whelen Cadillac. But Watkins Glen has not exactly been a happy hunting ground for this team. Their best result here in the GTP era is a second place finish back in 2023. Since then, they've finished 5th and 8th here. It's not that bad, but when you consider that their closest competitors in the championship right now, Acura and Porsche, have been strong or have grabbed wins here in recent years, then this is a big weekend for the 31. More broadly, Cadillac as a manufacturer has yet to win here at Watkins Glen in the GTP era. They finished second every year that the GTPs have been raced here, but the question is this weekend not just whether the 31 can extend their podium streak to 8, it's whether Watkins Glen is finally the place where Cadillac can break through to the top step. Now, the LMP2 class has been off the grid since Sebring back in March. Pretty long stretch between races. And when the green flag flies on Sunday, it'll have been over 3 months since these cars last were on the track back at Sebring. Now, the LMP2 class, in my opinion, is one of the more underrated classes on the Imsa grid. It consistently produces some of the closest racing and some of the best battles that you'll see on track all weekend long. On top of that, the championship picture heading into this round is incredibly tight. Just 3 points separate the number 22 United Autosport entry from the 04 CrowdStrike by APR entry. 3 points! It's basically a point for every month they've been away from the track. So shaking off all of that rust after that long off period is going to be a big thing to watch for, especially for those bronze drivers who are going to be qualifying these cars and starting the race on Sunday. What will help a lot with many of these entries is that virtually all of them had representation back a couple weeks ago at the 24 Hours of Le Mans, so many of them aren't coming in completely cold. But this is also the beginning of a stretch of 3 straight races where the LMP2s will be on the grid. Watkins Glen is going to be followed by CTMP, where the LMP2 class headlines the running there, and then there's the new 6-hour race format at Road America to follow that up. So whoever gets their rhythm first for this weekend, and importantly stays out of any trouble, could be setting themselves up for a strong run through the summer. As it always seems to be, the GTD class has been one of the most unpredictable classes on the grid for the 2026 season. We've had 4 races, 4 different winners, and 4 different manufacturers. Mercedes with Windward Racing won at Daytona. Ferrari and AF Corsa won at Sebring. Vassar Sullivan and their Lexus won at Long Beach, while Wayne Taylor Racing and their Lamborghini won at Laguna Seca. Then the point standings reflect exactly this kind of chaos, with the number 27 Heart of Racing Aston Martin leading the championship by 140 points despite not winning a race yet. Now, Watkins Glen has historically been a very strong track for Heart of Racing. They have 4 class wins here across the 2 GT classes that they've participated in over the last 4 years. They swept both the GTD Pro and GTD classes in 2022, won GTD Pro once again in 2024, and then they won GTD last year with Casper Stevenson, Tom Gamble, and Zach Robichon behind the wheel. Safe to say they're going to have a massive target on their back this weekend. But with 4 different winners from 4 different manufacturers to start the year, I think that genuinely we could see any of the 20 cars entered in this class win the race. The question really remains is that who can emerge in this very challenging GTD class and really take the fight to the Heart of Racing, and could the Heart of Racing actually have their first slip up of the season? Because in a class of 20 entries, a little slip up here can cost you a lot of points. This weekend at Watkins Glen could be the moment where the GTD Championship picture starts to get a little bit clearer, with either an intense battle starting to heat up or another GTD runaway taking place. Now, we talked about the 31 and their remarkable run of consistency, but let's zoom out and take a look at the full GTP Championship picture because it's more interesting than the headline number suggests. Now, the 31 leads here with 1,760 points, with the 7 Porsche in second, 154 points back. The 93 Acura are behind them by 208 points, and then you get the 6 just behind them. Now, 154 points sounds like quite a bit as we enter the halfway mark of the season, but here's the thing, there's still 5 race weekends to go. An off weekend or two for the number 31 combined with a win for really any of those cars in the top 5, and things could all of a sudden get pretty interesting. 3 different manufacturers have also won so far in GTP this year, with Porsche, Acura, and Cadillac all gaining wins. And on top of that, 3 different manufacturers have won here in the past 3 years at Watkins Glen: Acura, Porsche, and BMW. Now, you know BMW and Aston Martin, who are looking for their first GTP wins of the year, and for Aston Martin, their first GTP win at all, are going to be coming out and being a little extra hungry this weekend. Cadillac, meanwhile, I mentioned, they haven't won yet here at Watkins Glen. They've been consistent, but they still haven't won in the GTP era. Then, of course, you have a couple of cars who have won here. Porsche and Acura, well, they're trying to reel in the 31 to make that championship a real fight. So 154 points all of a sudden doesn't seem like that much. And with Watkins Glen, it's just a track where passing is so much more possible than, last round out at Detroit. And it always seems to surprise us, and that could really all add up and produce an unlikely winner in GTP. Now, if the GTP Championship is interesting, then the GTD Pro Championship is absolutely on fire. Just 31 points cover the top 4 teams heading into Watkins Glen, with the number 4 Corvette of Tommy Milner and Nicky Katzberg leading the way, and they're actually the only one of the top 4 that haven't won a race yet this season. The number 1 Paul Miller Racing BMW are just 18 points back, with the number 65 Ford just 2 points further behind that. And then you have the sister Corvette, the number 3, who won last round out at Detroit. They're right there in 4th, 31 points off the lead. You look up and down the GTD Pro grid and there's just a ton of stories to follow on top of this close championship fight. You have Nicky Katzberg coming off a Le Mans LMGT3 class win. Could that momentum carry over into a breakthrough GTD Pro win for the number 4 this weekend? You have Pfaff, who are coming off really a surprising first podium of the season at Detroit. But let's not forget, they were strong here last year, and they could snag a pole here for a 2nd win in a row, carry that through into the race, and really upset some of the favorites in this class. Ford, who have largely flown under the radar for most of this season, could they be on for another win here? And then there's Lexus. I know I talked about them grabbing a GTD win here before, but could they pull off a big win here this weekend with honestly one of the strongest driver lineups in the field? This GTD Pro battle, not only the championship battle, but this class in general, is one I'm going to have my eyes glued to all weekend. Now, the final storyline that I want to talk about here is one that's completely out of everyone's hands, and that's the weather. And look, if you've been watching Imsa at Watkins Glen, especially the last few years, you know exactly why this is on the list. A few years ago, massive storm rolled through mid-race, brought out a red flag, and completely shuffled the running order, threw a wrench into the drive times. It was chaos at the end of it. Heck, even just last year, the race was red flagged due to weather as well. Cars were sliding off the track, unable to catch up even to the slow-moving safety car. This track in June can throw everything at you, whether it's torrential rain, blistering heat, oftentimes even in the same race. Now, this weekend's weather forecast is honestly looking pretty calm compared to recent years. Temperatures in the mid-70s Fahrenheit or the mid-20s Celsius across all 3 days of running, with a chance of scattered showers. Is honestly pretty tame compared to what we've seen here in the past. But let's be honest, this is Watkins Glen in late June. The forecast can change quickly, and with The track's situated amongst many, I don't know if I want to call them mountains, but they are very large hills at least. The forecast can change very quickly, and even that expected brief shower can turn into a large one. If one of those comes through at the wrong moment, it could completely flip the strategic picture in this race. Or heck, we've even seen it completely change the outcome of qualifying as well. And with a championship this tight across all 4 classes, a well-timed rain shower could be realistically the difference between being a title contender and a title pretender coming out of this weekend. I'm going to be at the track later this week with plenty of videos lined up for you, so make sure that you've hit that subscribe button so you don't miss those. And yes, we'll be doing a track meetup. Stay tuned for more details on that. But in the meantime, you should go and get caught up on everything that happened back in a very chaotic race in Detroit right here. Huge shout out to all of the channel supporters. If you too want to support the show, you can head to patreon.com/offintheesses or become a channel member here on YouTube by pressing the join button below. Once again though, thanks for tuning in. I hope everyone has a great race weekend and doesn't go off in the S's.